Hey guys, what is up? This is DJ Cade back once again, and I am really proud of the way the community has picked up the slack in the absence of the Sylph Arena just having this little kind of break in the month of September. We have had a lot of really neat, really interesting custom cups pop up, like the Montreal Safari Cup, the Cliffhanger Cup, and I've even seen coverage of a specific cup just for baby Pokemon. I think it was a CP limit of like 760, and it was called the Sippy Cup, and come on, that's the most adorable thing ever, isn't it? But the custom cups really got me thinking, because even as far back as the Tempest Cup, I was kind of saying to myself, you know, like, what if we could go to PvPoke here, and we could kind of put in our own custom types, if we could put in our own custom rules and see how the rankings play out, and give us a chance to kind of create our own custom metas and kind of compare some things. You know, so we don't end up with a situation where we have one really strong bully Pokemon, or we have a core where there's only like 4 Pokemon that are really relevant to the meta. And this was something that I actually asked around on various Discords to try and find out if there was anybody involved in PvPoke, if there was any sort of way we could get this kind of feature, where we could get like a custom meta creator where we could check these things out ourselves. And I was actually really surprised, because I think in less than 36 hours after I asked somebody about that, somebody popped in, I think it was on the Battle Park Discord server, and they released this update for PvPoke, which allows just that. If you hover over rankings, you'll see this custom rankings button here, which might need a little bit of text alignment, but as you can see, we can do just that. We can now create our own custom metas, and I think this is really cool, because it's tools like this that are going to embody a lot of independent Pokemon tournaments and really inspire a lot of new metas and new rule sets and new ways for people to think outside the box and dominate the competition in different ways. And it's going to make it a whole lot easier for different venues, such as gaming events like conventions and things like that, to host their own custom metas and not have to rely so much on having an extremely deep knowledge of every single type matchup in the game. They can just plug a few values in here, create their own unique custom thing, and have a really interesting tournament that attracts a lot of people. So what I'm going to do today in this video, I'm actually going to be doing 3 different things today, and I'm going to try to cover them all fairly quick. The first thing I want to do for this video is give you guys a complete guide on how to use the custom ranking system on PvPoke to give yourself an idea of what your meta is going to look like. The second thing I'm going to do as part of this video is use the custom ranking system and the various filters to create my very own custom meta that I'm going to be sharing with you guys halfway through this video, maybe 2/3 of the way through it. And the third thing I want to do for this video is cover a brand new meta that was actually a user-created meta created by the user Zombie Chew over at PoGo Colosseum. And this meta is called the Ghostbusters Cup, and it was reviewed by a lot of the different players that were there, and they decided that this would be a really fun meta, and it was adopted by the player base. So at this moment, every single lobby is having their own Ghostbusters Cup meta tournament. I just got finished with mine, and I have all the footage recorded, and I am going to be in my next video giving you guys complete coverage of that tournament from my perspective. And for this video anyways, what I'd like to do is use the custom meta creator to recreate that meta and give us the rankings so that we can see in the Ghostbusters Cup meta what is going to be the most relevant for us to use. So first of all, let's cover all of the basics and everything that you see on this first screen with the custom rankings. So the first category we have is include, and this is going to be a category where you can add filters that will basically, you know, even though it says include, that language is a little tricky. What you have to remember is that these are all filters, and what these will do is they will narrow down from every available Pokemon in whichever league that you select, because you can make your own custom Ultra League as well. It will narrow down all available Pokemon based on the criteria that you select. And there are quite a few different criteria and different types of filters that you can use, but we'll get to that in a second. The exclude category is very, very similar and actually includes all the same type of filters that can be found in the include category, but anything put under the exclude category will obviously be excluded from your meta that you have created. And we'll go over all of this in more detail as we go. The import-export settings that you see here are a way that you can share your own custom meta with other people simply by creating sort of a text code string that you can copy and paste into Discord or into some other message or on some other forum somewhere, so that instead of the user on their end having to reassemble your meta from all the different filters and everything and having to redo all of that, they can simply just copy and paste the text string, the code string, into the import-export settings, and it will recreate that whole meta instantaneously. And the last category you see at the bottom here is Moveset Overrides, and this is going to be really important because as of yet, PvPoke does not optimize the movesets for every Pokemon. What it currently does is that it draws off of what are currently considered the best movesets for that Pokemon in an open meta, and it automatically applies those movesets to those Pokemon, and it will rank those Pokemon based on those movesets. Now, as you guys know, sometimes there are certain movesets that are a lot better for one meta than they are for another meta. Like, for example, sometimes Bug Bite is the superior move to use on your Venomoth. Although Confusion is very good most of the time, there are situations where you might want to use that. Or Hypno with its variety of elemental punches. You know, depending on the meta, you never know quite which elemental punch is going to be the best. One might give you greater coverage than the other. So in this case, the Moveset Override category allows you to put in the optimum movesets, or what you think are the optimum movesets, or heck, any moveset, or whatever is not considered the default moveset for that league. So why don't we just dive right into this here, and why don't we try out some of these filters and see how these work. So we've already added an include type filter, and you're automatically going to want to start with at least one of these. And right away you can see all the various types are available for you to choose. Now I'm not going to even look here, I'm just going to pick a couple random types. I'm just going to set my mouse sensitivity low, close my eyes, and like start at one end, go and see what I end up getting here. Wow, I didn't get anything. Okay, electric, rock, ice. Like, let's just say we wanted to make a meta just out of those three types. Now we'll click simulate, and after a brief moment, you can see that our meta pops up. And as you can see in this particular meta, Abomasnow is just absolutely going to dominate the competition with a 100% in its battle rating, and the second place Pokemon offering a measly 82%. So as you can see, like, we're going to have to do some balancing. We're going to have to maybe add some filters in order to balance out this meta, but we'll get more into that as we go along. The next type of filter under the inclusion category is going to be the tag. Now this is for things like regionals, Alolands, mythicals, and legendaries. At least those are the 4 tags that are currently offered by the meta creator. Now I really think that the tag category is more suited for the exclude category down here. Because, like, let's say if you pick legendary, sure, you can simulate that and you can have like an only legendary meta. And as you can see, Raikou is taking the #1 spot. Suicune actually finally seeing some justice here. Maybe if there was a legendary only meta, Suicune would actually do well. And Cresselia doing well, but actually it doesn't look too balanced. Our rankings drop below 90% after only 3 Pokemon. Again, and obviously there's not really many Pokemon to choose from in this meta, so you wouldn't want to run with something like this anyways. So like, The tag category, I think, would be a lot better suited in the exclude area. The next type is the species type, and for this it's a little bit different filter than any of the others offered, because this is basically either going to force a Pokemon, whether or not it is in the include or exclude category, to be, well, included or excluded. So let's say that you had a meta, and these need to be applied in order, and I will talk about that a little bit later. So first of all, let's make a meta that's like something like Dark, Bug, and Ghost. Let's go Dark, Bug, and Ghost, and for whatever reason we decide that we want to allow Defense Form Deoxys to be a part of this meta, even though it doesn't match any of the typings. So we can go Deoxys, and because this particular Pokemon has a secondary part to its name, we put an underscore and add defense. And now we'll see, we can simulate that and we can watch how this meta plays out. Tyranitar is still going to take the #1 spot, and Sableye and Umbreon already being strong Pokemon. But as you can see, Deoxys is only ranked 9th in this meta. But that is something that this particular filter allows us to do, but what you're more commonly going to be using this particular one for is under the exclude category, to give yourself particular bans. So if you have like a ban on a specific Pokemon like a Vigoroth, or like a Sableye or a Medicham, you would put that here under the exclude category. Now the last type of filter that this offers is a Pokedex number filter, and really the purpose of this one is to give us a way of including only certain generations of Pokemon. So as you can see, they've got a really handy key right here for us that tells us what generations we want. So let's say that we only want to do generations 2 through 4. So why don't we see what that looks like right now if we have a meta that absolutely does not include any of the Generation 1 Pokemon. How different would that look? And as you can see, it really doesn't look too much different, does it? I mean, Medicham, Altaria, Lucario still way up there. Defense Form Deoxys is still a beast. Tropius, Skarmory, Bastiodon doesn't get rid of Vigoroth. But a lot of the starters are out of there, like Venusaur being out of there is going to make a little bit of a difference, but obviously this isn't going to be too much of a difference. So why don't we start using some of these filters now to really kind of build my own custom meta. Maybe I can create a meta right here on camera for you guys. That maybe you might want to adopt, and if you want to adopt it, feel free, go ahead. But let's get to making this meta, and let's use some of these filters in a variety of ways. So when I was initially going to create my meta, I noticed this interesting option over here that says monotype. And I was like, that's kind of interesting. Does that mean only Pokemon that are of a single typing? And yes, it does actually mean that, which is kind of an interesting thing. It's not really a rule that I had considered in the future for a custom type. So let's say we go with Dragon and Electric and Psychic, and we pick monotype. Now the way this is going to work is it's going to add any Pokemon that obviously qualify for these 3 types, but it's also going to add every other Pokemon in the Great League that's compatible that is of a single typing. So as you can see, after we generate this, you can see here that we have a lot of our dual types that qualify, like Altaria, Medicham, Deoxys, but Vigoroth is not any of those types. He is only a normal type, and as a result, he does get included when you select that monotyping. Now I thought, well, that doesn't really seem like the goal that I'm really going for. Like, if I was going to create a custom meta around monotyping, I'd rather pick like 5 or 6 or maybe 4 types that worked well together, and then only have those be of a monotyping. So if you want to do that, what you have to do is you have to create another filter right below that, that once you have your first few types selected in your first filter, then you select monotype on your second filter. And it's very important to have the monotype filter as the second filter in your list. So now when we simulate that, we're going to get a completely different lineup, As you can see, only Pokemon that are of a single typing make it, and as you can see, Mew pretty much dominates with that Shadow Claw, so this isn't going to be a great meta either. But if you want to do the monotyping, that's what I recommend. So just to cut to the chase and not to make this video too long, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just select the typings that I came up with when I was looking at creating my own custom meta, and some typings that I played around with to kind of see what would work in terms of typings that would, Pokemon that would only be allowed if they were of a single typing. And what I actually found, just to cut to the chase so this doesn't get too long and this video isn't full of experimentation or anything, is Fairy, Fighting, Fire, Poison, Psychic, and Rock. So now let's simulate that with the monotypings in place. And as you can see, it's kind of really unbalanced, isn't it? It's really unbalanced in favor of those psychic types. And some of the typings just aren't very strong to begin with, like a lot of the fighting types. But I noticed one thing right away, is that Mew, Deoxys Defense, Cresselia, Uxie are occupying a lot of the top spots. So maybe we could balance out this meta just a little bit more if we decided to do a ban on legendaries and mythicals. So why don't we apply that right away? Let's go down to species. No, it's under tag. We'll select both legendary and mythical, and now that we have that selected, we will just hit the generate button, and as you can see, oof, looking a little bit more balanced, I guess. I mean, there's a lot of 77, 76, 74, 72, but Hypno is just absolutely stomping all of the competition in this meta so far. So what if we would decide to do a specific ban on Hypno? How would that affect our meta? Let's go down and let's just select species, and all we're gonna have to do here is type Hypno, and as you can see, this is looking a whole lot more balanced right away. We've got 100, 98, 98, 97, 97, 95, 94, 93, and if you are creating your own custom metas, these are the kind of numbers you're going to want to see. I mean, there's always going to be one Pokemon that kind of takes the top spot in any simulation like this. And, you know, there's always going to be Pokemon that counter that Pokemon that are in that top spot. In this case, regular Muck is actually taking the top spot in this meta, but he has some solid counters. All of the Psychic types, Ninetales, that Pseudo-Woodo. So there's definitely solid options for countering that Muck. But as you can see, we're actually really balanced at this point, and when I was creating my own custom meta, I kind of figured that this would be balanced enough for me. This is kind of like within the spirit of what I wanted to do here. I wanted to have a lot of Pokemon that weren't really commonly used, like have some stuff that's just not having Medicham and not having Altaria and not having Skarmory, and getting away from a lot of the same Pokemon that you see over and over. As you can see, Chimecho, Pseudo-Woodo, Machamp, Kadabra, Seviper, Espeon, all seeing some play, Sunny Cast Form, some really different, really interesting stuff, and just a couple Pokemon peppered in that have been used before, like the Hitmonchan and the Clefable. So this is basically my own custom meta, you guys. I call it the Outlaw Cup. And if any of you guys want to use that for your own purposes or your own tournaments, you're totally welcome to use that. So there it is. That's the second part of my video covered. I've essentially, within less than, I don't know, what, 10 minutes, created a fairly well-balanced meta. And some people might like a meta like this. Some people might hate it because they might say, oh, well, I don't want to power up all those other Pokemon, but some people might say, yeah, that looks awesome. Like, that's a lot of Pokemon that we don't see quite often. And so, like, I mean, it's up to you guys. Like, I'm actually hoping to get this one played out sometime in the future in Pokemon Go Colosseum. And whether or not it actually happens, if it doesn't happen, that's fine with me. It's just an idea that I wanted to throw out there for you guys. Now, real quick, I want to let you guys know of one thing that you need to watch out for when you're doing these custom rankings on PvPoke, is that you need to avoid logical errors when you're setting up your filters. Now, what do I mean by that? Like, let's take my meta that I just made, for example, and let's say I decided that, I forgot, maybe I want to add dragon type to this meta. Like, let's say I go to add another filter, and I go to select dragon type. Now, what's going to happen here is because PvPoke has already applied the first filter of those 6 typings, and it's also applied the second filter of the mono typings, then when the third filter comes around, it's only going to be looking at those pool of Pokemon that have already been filtered out by those 2 filters above it. So it's only going to be looking at mono type Pokemon of Fairy, Fighting, Fire, Poison, Psychic, and Rock. Now, if we add Dragon, what that's essentially going to tell PvPoke is that you're going to be looking for all of the Dragon types within that group of other 6 types. And since there are no dragon types in this group that the other 2 filters have defined, what's going to happen is when you go to simulate this, it's just going to say generating, and it's going to lag out. And it's just going to lag and lag and lag, and it's just because it's trying to create a meta that doesn't exist. It's trying to create a meta that essentially has 0 Pokemon. So if you want to get more specific and you want to get more complex and you want to include like specific Pokemon that really shouldn't fit in with your normal rules, then a lot of that is going to have to be done by adding another filter. As you can see, it's still generating here. It's not going to do anything. If you want to add any Pokemon like that, you're going to have to add them one by one with the species filter in the inclusion category. But let's reset this and let's show you another example of something that you can avoid and where you would have to use an exclusion filter to maybe set up the scenario that you want. So we're back to square one. As you can see, I had to refresh my page because it just kept saying generating, and even if you fix your filters, even if you fix your logistical errors, I still don't think that it ever gets to a point where it ever starts generating a meta again. It kind of locks up. So if that happens, you will have to refresh, but let's try a different type of situation. Let's say we wanted to include only Generation 2 and Generation 4. So like what you don't want to do in this case is type in 152. Are we frozen? Okay, there we go. It's just lagging quite a bit. I'm not sure what's happening, and I think that might have been the result of that other error we gave it on purpose. Now let's say we decide, oh, we want to include Gen 1 and we want to include Gen 4. So let's go 378 to 488. This is going to be another logistical error, and it's going to be another freeze for the program, because what it's doing is it's saying, oh, the first filter is saying, oh, we're eliminating it to only Gen 2, and then you're essentially telling it to find all of the Gen 4 Pokemon inside of a group of Gen 2 Pokemon, which is a logical fallacy, so it's not going to find anything. So in order to avoid that in this case, what you're going to want to do is create a Pokedex filter that filters from Gen 2 through 4. So what we're going to do is 152 all the way through 488, and we're going to add an exclusion filter that excludes the range of Generation 3 Pokemon. So let's take this and let's go 252 to 386, and now this should simulate accurately, and we should get a meta that's composed entirely of Gen 2 and Gen 4 Pokemon. As you can see, that has popped up, and kind of different. I mean, Togekiss really taking a high ranking in this particular meta, and once again, we have a couple really strong bully Pokemon. Lucario, Bastiodon, Skarmory are going to dominate pretty much everything in this meta. They're going to be your top picks no matter what, but still kind of interesting. So that's all I wanted to point out to you guys, is that you want to avoid logical fallacies like that. And of course, it should probably come without saying that you should avoid any filters in the inclusion category that are essentially empty. Because if you have any completely empty filter in the inclusion category, whether it's type or tag or anything, you're basically telling that filter to include none of those Pokemon. You're basically, like in this case, saying, well, the filter is only going to look for legendary, mythical, Alolan, and regional. And since you don't have any of those selected, it's going to tell PvPoke to look for nothing. So, and that's once again going to generate an infinite lag out situation. So that's one of the big things I can tell you is just don't forget about your empty filters. If you're not using one, delete it, and you can avoid having to refresh your page all the time. But you guys are probably wondering, right? Like, what is this Ghostbusters Cup? What is this? Like, how does that play out? How does that work? Like, what are the top Pokemon for that? Well, we're going to use the custom meta creator to recreate that meta for you guys as well. So first of all, we're going to remove this filter. We've already got an exclusion filter up for our two excluded species, which are Sableye and Wigglytuff. And for this, it's actually fairly simple. We're just going to pick Normal and Ghost. And as you can see, once again, we had a meta where Vigoroth kind of walked away with everything. I mean, and you guys would look at this and you'd probably think, well, man, like, this is just totally dominated by Vigoroth, isn't it? Well, not really. Vigoroth actually has quite a few solid counters in this meta. Drifblim is actually going to be a crazy hard counter to Vigoroth, double resisting those body slams, at least resisting the body slams and double resisting the counters. And then Dusclops, Alolan Marowak with the Rock Smash is going to be very good against Vigoroth, Misdreavus, and Frostlass, which turned out to be a very, very strong pick in this cup. So even though you would think that, you know, how much variety could there be with a cup like this? I gotta give credit to Zombie Chew here. He really did his research. Those bans on Sableye and Wigglytuff were actually very, very important, and he really did his homework when it came to matchups. And this ended up being really fun because, like, Noctowl was a very good pick for this cup. Frostlass, Alolan Raticate being very powerful, being able to just absolutely shred through Ghost types, just with the fast move alone. Barrel with the water gun being kind of a sleeper pick. Delcatty, an expensive investment, but a charm user and one that like was resisted, that almost nothing in this meta resisted. And a few people were brave enough to make that investment to get a Delcatty for the Great League. But keep in mind, if you want a Delcatty in the Great League, it's got to be level 40, so press Fs for all those people who invested for the Delcatty for this tournament. But we have a lot of other picks here. Dunsparce actually coming in the top 10. Swellow, kind of a Noctowl clone. Haunter being very good with Sludge Bomb as its most used move in this cup, giving it the most type coverage by far. But as you can see, Zangoose with a very interesting moveset for this meta with that Shadow Claw and the Night Slash. That could have been a very interesting option for people. But as you can see, as we go down, there's more of these get used less and less. But one thing that I wanted to do, and I really wanted to be competitive in this tournament. I really wanted to develop a solid strategy, and I really wanted to look at this from every single angle that I could, because I really wanted to give you guys some great tournament coverage. And man, like, wait until you see this, you guys. Like, you aren't gonna believe what I come up with here. So one of the things that I mentioned earlier in this video is that PvPoke does not optimize the movesets for each of these Pokemon. As you can see, Alolan Raticate is currently rocking the Quick Attack, Crunch, and Hyper Beam, which is really not the optimum moveset. You're going to want that Bite. It's going to do neutral damage to all the normal types and hit all the ghost types for super effective damage. So like in almost all cases, you're going to want the Bite, and I don't really know why it even ranks Alolan Raticate like that in this case, just because But it's because in this case, Quick Attack is normally the preferred moveset, but not in this case. So what we want to do is, I'm actually going to use this last part of this video to cover the Moveset Overrides options and give you guys an idea on how these rankings can change based on just optimizing the movesets and how important that is going to be when developing your own custom metas. So right away, we're going to want to adjust this Raticate's Quick Attack. We don't want that. We want a totally different moveset. We're going to want to go to add Pokemon right here, Kate, and if we just put in a space, it'll automatically bring up a Alolan. We'll give it Bite, and we will give it Hyper Fang because we want it to, you know, have a decently fast option against the normal types. We don't want to have it be waiting for the Hyper Beam, you know what I mean? But we can go with Crunch in this case, and ooh, it kind of disappeared on us. Alright, so we got that in there. I think that's still a little bit glitchy. I don't know why the window just disappeared on us like that, you know, so I don't know what that's all about. But anyways, we've got the Bite in there. Let's run this simulation again, just with that update, and see how things change. And as you can see, Alolan Raticate's battle rating goes up to an 82. So even though the simulations are still showing that Quick Attack as the optimum move, it's really not for this meta. So let's see if there's any other Pokemon that we can find out of here that might have a better moveset than what's currently being offered. So I think in this case, Zangoose could do with Shadow Claw over that Fury Cutter. I mean, Shadow Claw is notorious for being one of the best fast moves there is, and it's going to give us some of the best coverage. It may be walled by some of the normal types, so, I mean, but Zangoose isn't really going to be able to do anything against the normal types that really threaten it anyways, so it's going to almost have to be a situation where you would switch out. So why don't we change the Zangos? Why don't we change Zangoose to the Shadow Claw, Night Slash, and let's go with Close Combat here to fight those normal types. And as you can see, after simulating this, Zangoose is actually going to climb from 16th to 14th. So that's really, really good. So that's a definite improvement, and I think that's going to be a superior moveset. Munchlax running Tackle? No, not for this meta. No. I mean, with the Lick, he's going to be an extremely hard counter to Ghost types. He's going to resist all those Ghost type moves while dealing super effective damage back, and Lick is an incredibly fast move. And Bulldoze is going to be a really good option, especially when going up against things like Frostlass. So let's give him a new moveset while we're at it as well. And, whoa. Wow, so Munchlax has jumped up from 17th to 12th, so that was a definite improvement for Munchlax in this meta, and it's something that I think it's absolutely going to be his optimum moveset. I've seen people running Munchlax in this tournament already. None of them are running that Tackle. They're all running Lick in this case. So let's just keep going, and let's just see Shadow Claw, Grass Knot Thunder. That looks about right. We don't want to be doing Zen Headbutt on Meltank for this tournament. I just don't think Meltank is going to be that strong. Explode, that's definitely going to be good. Kangaskhan with Low Kick and Mud Slap. Huh. You know, I think Kangaskhan could do with Mud Slap in this case, because I think Low Kick is going to be resisted by a whole lot more Pokemon than Mud Slap is going to be. I know there's some flying types in this meta, but there's a lot fewer flying types than there are Ghost types. So why don't we give Kangaskhan a new moveset while we're at it too, and Crunch is actually going to be a fairly quick, fast move. This might be a real sleeper, so let's see how this plays out. Wow, and that was a definite improvement for Kangaskhan, absolutely. What was he at, like 23rd the last time we looked at him? And he has jumped up to 14th. That is absolutely an improvement. Like, that's crazy. So like I said, even though these when you're doing the custom rankings, just don't trust these calculations here. These, you're gonna want to do your own. Just like make your own. And wait, let's see, what other Pokemon are offered here? Like Furret with Sucker Punch. Ooh, that might be really interesting, because like, why would you want to use Quick Attack, right? That's going to be resisted by the Ghost types. And if he had Sucker Punch, then that could do super effective damage to all of the ghost types and neutral damage to the normal types, and not give him any sort of disadvantage against flying. I gotta see what this looks like here. I gotta see what this looks like. You know what? I think Dig is actually going to be a better option in this case, right? It's going to be resisted by a lot less, and we already have the Brick Breaks to deal with the normal types, right? So I think we're just going to give him Dig. Yeah, why not? I mean, worst charge move. Let's give him the worst charge move in the game. Let's see how this works out for us. Wait, where'd he go? Number 6?